Hey guys, horror fans, this is going to be my review of Final Destination 2 from 2003. So this is a first time watch for me, and if you've been paying attention to the channel this month, you'll know I've already done the first film, which I was, mostly positive on. I quite enjoyed the first Final Destination. It's a good watch. And so this is the follow-up. I'm going to be doing all the movies on the channel. I will be doing at least the first three this month. The third film I'm actually planning to do on a live stream, so that's something to look out for later in the month. But here we go. The second one, you've got a change of director with David Ellis, I think his name is. Different writers involved also, I think, this time. And so it's a follow-on where it starts out on a freeway, and you have this character of Kimberly who's going on a road trip for the weekend with some friends, like college friends or something. And a bit like Alex in the first film, she has visions of something which is about to unfold or potentially unfold, where there's going to be like this massive accident on the highway and various people are going to be killed, a bit like Alex did with the plane in the first film. So Kimberly has this vision and starts freaking out, and she's kind of restrained by the highway police. But then people, it's a bit more murky in this sequel who exactly is infected, but basically a group of people in different cars in the nearby vicinity, they're all caught up in it, and you get various deaths, bits flying everywhere into cars crashing into each other, like a truck smashing into a car. And Kimberly basically loses her friends. Kimberly, played by AJ Cook, by the way. AJ Cook is one of these actresses who was around a lot around this sort of time. She was in Criminal Minds. She was in The Virgin Suicides. For people who've seen True Calling, the Eliza Dushku show, she also had a part in that as the lead character's best friend, I think. So she was quite big around this time. It's sort of typical of this sort of film and era where you have these characters and these actors popping up who were big at the time, but not so much now, sort of thing. They haven't quite had sustained career, but she's solid enough. She's likable enough. I think Kimberly's a solid character. But as a sequel, what basically happens is that Kimberly, along with a group of survivors from the highway incident, they then become the target for death in this, because Kimberly intervened and she saved a bunch of people who it was their time, they were supposed to die. Death then comes after them, and they have to figure out who's next and how to save them. And to help her in this, she enlists the help of Claire, Ali Letter, who of course was in the first film. She's the only returning cast member actually from the first film. So it's this whole thing which, when I saw Ali Letter was in the cast list, I guessed that she was going to become this kind of, because she went through it in the first film, she was going to help Kimberly try and save these people. It's a really big cast actually, because you've got the actress out of 6 Feet Under's in it. She plays this pregnant woman who's potentially at threat. One who played Vanessa out of 6 Feet Under. You've got an actor from Battlestar Galactica in here. You've got a whole bunch of people. But the three sort of leads are Kimberly, this cop, the cop who was on the highway at the time, and Also, Clear, played by Lee Letter. And at the start, or when we're introduced to Clear, she's in a mental institution. I guess not unreasonably, following the violent death of her boyfriend Alex, who no, he didn't make it to the sequel. I guess maybe the actor wanted to do other things or something like that. She booked herself into a mental institute, and she takes some persuading, and she kind of gives like Kimberly a few words of advice, but that's about it. It appears as though she doesn't want any part of it, but she eventually talks herself into it. So she basically discharges herself from the asylum, and it's like the three of them, they become the lead, but then you have these bunch of other characters who are like the characters who are supposedly in line to be killed off by death. Tony Todd makes a cameo. He has a very like entertaining cameo. So we're reintroduced to like his mortician. Again, Tony Todd is on good form, and I mean it's not as good as his appearance in the first film, but it's good to see him. I sort of like that continuity. And he has some dramatic sort of lines for Kimberly, about how death just found you, Kimberly, so something like that. But in any event, there's a bunch of Mecha references. Again, there's various like names, like the mother of this boy who was on the highway, her last name's Mrs. Carpenter, and there's a bunch of horror themed names. So that stuff's there, which I quite enjoy. Again, it's a film of its time. The look of it, the opening credits, the music, which I have to say now is very dated and very bad. I don't think the soundtrack's as good as the first film, I'll say that. And this film really didn't do it for me. I thought it was pretty bad, very sort of bland. I thought the plot was very murky, very like confused. It's almost like they were trying too hard to sort of up the ante. There's various twists sort of thrown in, but the problem is some of the twists don't really work anyway, but B, I think the twists like create more problems. I think this is a film which is trying to be too clever for itself. It's the sort of thing where they're just playing with the rules which were originally set up, and it makes those rules kind of meaningless. But it's almost changing the game throughout, and it feels like it's doing that more to shock you and surprise you than it is to really, because it really makes sense and it really adds something. I mean, there's a twist here where there's a twist quite late on. It's revealed where we find out that there's a link between the characters from the first film and the characters from this film. There's a link where basically they were all meant to be in a certain place near the characters. And that's why the events of this film is happening. So, for example, for those of you who remember the first film and the ending outside that theatre in Paris, one of the characters in this film, he was supposed to be in that theatre basically when the thing like smashed into it. So it's to do with them having this connection to the characters from the first film and them originally avoiding death. But I just hate that. It's like this forced sort of connection. They have to try and connect everything. Also, I think there's a simplicity to the first film which makes it works really well. I think the idea and the setup is very simplistic, and then it slowly builds from there, and it does some fun little things. Um, and it's the simplicity, but like the unique sort of concept, which actually makes the first film work so well. I think in this film they just overdo it, and they just keep throwing things in just for the sake of trying to surprise you. And often it just leads to a very plodding, like incomprehensible sort of film. I think the deaths were really good in the first film. A couple, especially. The deaths in this are really bad. The opening on the highway is quite well done. There's some good stunt work, but I think after that you just get a collection of over the top set pieces, which are kind of cheesy. They're very sort of gory, but the problem is it feels like very CGI sort of gore, in your face sort of gore, and it just lines up a bunch of characters that we don't really care about. You know, some of them we don't have anything invested in, so we get like this really obnoxious sort of this character who's just won the lottery, and he's like getting calls from all these girls supposedly who are into him because of his money, and he's like this really, like, you know, he's acting really cheesy and like a playboy, and he's so obnoxious from the first moment he's on screen. But the trouble is he's not entertaining obnoxious. He doesn't have like sort of entertaining dialogue or anything like that. He's just kind of annoying and a blank sort of slate. And his death is so over the top with the music. The music, like, is so badly edited in the scene where it's kind of teasing that he's going to get blown up and there's going to be a fire in his apartment, a bit like there was the teacher in the first film. And the whole gag is that he is kind of too lucky because he's won the lottery, that he's too lucky for these things to happen, so he keeps having these close shaves, and it doesn't really change him. He still ends up being quite obnoxious, but then eventually he does get it. He kind of, you know, escapes out the building, and then the fire escape ladder like comes down, and it like freezes. So he thinks it's okay, and then it just, something knocks it or something, and it like crashes through him, sort of thing. And when you see his head come off, it's so CGI sort of blood. So it's a rubbish kill, and we get a series of like rubbish kills. And as I said, the problem is we have no background for these characters, so we have nothing invested in them. Whereas in the first film, you obviously got to know the characters and stuff, and some were better than others, but you at least got to know them. But it's just a very like over the top sort of film, which I'm not saying in a way the franchise lends itself to that, but I think the kills are just really bad. I think there's some dodgy CGI. There's no real tension because I think everything is very much telegraphed. And as I said, you do get a bunch of obnoxious characters and very cliche sort of characters. Like, you get a stoner character who's just the by the book sort of generic horror stoner character. Now, I think when the film settles down and you actually get more of a focus on the Claire and the Kimberly character, and then the sheriff or the cop, when they team up and they become the focus, it gets a bit better because they are more likable. You care a bit more about them. I don't think Kimberly's like a great character, but I do think she's solid enough. I think AJ Cook is like likable enough in the role. And there's some fun scenes. There's a good scene towards the end in like the hospital, where there's this whole drama over the fact that because the Tony Todd character early in the film, you know, the only way to like stop death is to like introduce new life or something like that. So they think that the baby, the baby that's about to be born is like a target or something. So there's this drama where like they split up in the hospitals. Some of them going to the birth, and others trying to save this guy who's on critical condition. This guy who again is very annoying. I forget the character's name now, but he's this motor mouth sort of character who is just very obnoxious. The actor's really bad. That's the thing. Outside of the core, like the trio of characters who I mentioned, there's a lot of bad acting in the film and a lot of annoying characters. And the trouble is, it tries to juggle all these different things. So even though you have a few solid characters, they often will interact with other characters that are just, very bland, very annoying, who you just don't care about really. And as I said, there's some good scenes. That delivery room scene and the stuff in the hospital at the end is actually quite well done. But yeah, the film does get a bit ridiculous and not really in an entertaining way. So it ends up being a bit flat. And the script is an absolute mess. It's very... There's a real like lack of consistency to the rules. They keep changing the game. And as I said, it seems to be a twist for the sake of a twist. So, not great, unfortunately. Very sort of bland and generic, and no real tension. Not really that entertaining overall. So that's my thoughts on Final Destination 2. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. It's a real come down, I think, after the first film. But feel free to disagree in the comments below if you like the sequel. I know it does have its fans, so please express that in the comments. Let me know what you think of it, why you disagree if you do. How do you compare it to the first film? Do you like it more? Do you like it less? Just give me your overall feelings and your feelings on this franchise, which I will be doing the whole franchise. And of course, more horror movie reviews coming up on the channel and more Final Destination, because I'll be doing the third film on the live stream. And I know that the third film is actually, it's the team of Glenn Morgan, James Wong, the X-Files team, who of course were involved in the first film. They reunite for number 3. So I think we're in good hands. I'm hoping number 3 will be a return to form. But there you have it. That's Final Destination 2. And that's it for me for now. Look out for more horror movie reviews and live streams throughout the months. Take care and goodbye.